You'd made a point that was like it should have been very convincing about prisoners or inmates, you know, the dregs of society or whatever, accepting God and then fulfilling, you know, becoming, you know, a good Christian and all that. And how that would have been a very convincing proof for, I guess, you know, the transcendent power of God or whatever. But the simple fact, because you said you've seen this personally, but I've also personally seen the same thing you're talking about, and it doesn't work out like that at all. The people that you were talking about are, you know, at the depths of desperation and depravity, and they're in basically a shithole, and someone's coming to them preaching hope, and they latch onto it in the depths of desperation, and as soon as they get out of jail, they're back to their old self, you know, doing the same thing. And it seems like if someone asked for God's help, when they get out, you know, when they really need it, when they're confronting these things, why would he not even be there stronger than when he was in jail in the first place? You know?
Have you been impressed with the sincerity of every student who stepped forward and debated or talked with me?
What do you mean?
Do you think that everybody is equally sincere who has stepped out here and talked?
No.
Good. If that's true at this fine university, don't you think that might also even be more true in the context of a prison?
I agree, but I've seen people that in the moment, they were sincere.
How do you know that?
Because I've known, there's a friend of mine, and he's had a lot of trouble in his life, and he is religious, but he struggles with it, and he's kind of fair weather Christian. He goes to this, when he's preached to me a lot of things. One time, like when he literally got out of jail, trying to get me to come, get me to come to church with him and all these things, and they're not unlike what you've saying. So if God's revealed these truths to him, how would God abandon him later?
You are far more talented than I am in being able to look into a human being and understanding their heart. I do not have that ability. That is why I try to the best of my ability to answer every person as if they were sincere. Because to tell you the truth, sir, at times, by the tone of their voice and by their body movements, I have been convinced they were just playing a game with me. And to tell you the truth, at times I was wrong. At times they were sincere. So I can promise you, I am no more able to judge a person's sincerity than I am able to understand all the difficult questions in the universe.
Where is justice? What is mercy? Where's the sacred and the holy? In this world full of choices, where's the truth in all the voices? Give me an answer. Don't waste my time. Tell it to me straight. The truth is getting hard to find. I have objections to what I've learned. I have questions and concerns. Give me an answer.
Like the examples that you would give, they seem, misleading. They don't seem to really prove anything, and that would, again, that raised the issue. I've been, someone gave me some advice once. There's actually a proverb that says, if you meet the Buddha along the road, kill him. And I mean, to me, that seems to what you're doing here, selling hope. And so, I mean, I think that it is our duty to, question all those supposed proofs and everything. The guy who's trying to sell you the path to enlightenment and truth is the guy you should be most wary of.
I wasn't under the impression that I'm selling anything.
Well, the books, I mean...
The books? What about the books?
I thought they were selling books back there.
Are you guys selling books back there? The books for free.
Oh, okay.
So if you'd like one, go right ahead and take one.
I stand corrected.
Why did you jump to that conclusion?
Because I've seen, this is the first instance I've been up here, this is my first year up here, first instance I've seen people promulgating, God and all that, and in Houston, every time I'd see it, they were doing what the girl was actually just talking about here, saying everyone's going to hell, and maybe it was a personal vendetta against people trying to posit their own ideas, and sometimes I see people that are very clever at doing that, and I just want to be able to try to give them a good debate.
Thanks for your honesty.
Because you always ask every time someone gets off, right before they leave, what they live for and their view. And I believe the whole purpose is an individual existence. You can't look at it without the context of society. We've always had society, and the whole process, the whole existence, like what our purpose here is what we're doing right now, the collective deliberation, you know, putting forth you take your experience, what you learn from life, and you have to bring that to the table. And when people just stand by and let people control the whole situation, that's a lack of living up to your purpose in life.
Which is?
Taking whatever it is you believe, whatever it is you have learned from experience, and coming up and bringing that to the table of society and getting it out there in collective deliberation. You know, Ben Franklin sets up this whole thing beautifully in his autobiography. That's what the whole idea of community is about, is, you know, the self. In the whole thing, he talks about the self, but he never talks about a private self, is because the self that matters is the communal self, what we give to each other and what we can take from each other so we can, you know, better our, you know, our way of life, how we live, and come to know, whatever you may call it, come to communion with God, or an actualization of self, or, you know, however Thoreau talks about going out and, you know, being aware of the, you know, this in tune acuteness to the life and all these different processes and different beliefs, and you have to be able to, you know, give everybody an equal share, I guess, and it's living up to your own responsibility, coming up here and putting your own ideas forward and letting them, you know, debate and dance with everybody else's.
Have you found a better way to promote life than what Jesus Christ taught and modeled?
Well, no, but I see that's Jesus Christ's way is one of many, and I mean, it's not necessarily that one is better, you know, objectively. One is only better subjectively in person. Jesus Christ's teachings are better for you, but to a person from a different culture, it may be something completely different. You know, when Emerson talks about the tradition, you know, he frowns upon tradition, saying that we're the present generation being thrown out into masquerade in the clothes of their forefathers is, you know, a wrong view. This tradition is given to us from our, you know, fathers and their fathers before them. It's not, you know, your grandfather's old coat that you're going out masquerade in this negative, you know, imagery that Emerson uses. It's, you know, your father's old jacket that's given down from your grandfather. It's a piece of your own personal history. That's why Christianity works for people who'd had Christianity in their past, whereas Buddhism would maybe work for someone who has more tendencies towards that. It's not that one is above the other. It's, we all see it from different lenses, and whichever one's, you know, coalesces with our experiences and our tradition is the best one.
Whatever coalesces with your tradition?
Yeah, so let's say,
is the
you know,
best
Christianity may work better for certain experiences than Islam. Some people might have grown up under a certain, you know, I don't know the exact experiences, but a person might be, you know, Islam could be more right for one person and help them to reach God than Christianity. But I'm not saying there's a different God, that one is right and one is wrong. They're different paths to the same thing. William Blake says this in his, he has two essays, All Religions Are One, and I forget the name of the other, but it's the same idea. It's different paths to the same mountaintop.
So the atheist and I are going to the same top of the same mountain?
Yeah. If that atheist can realize his responsibility to to the humans around him, to life around him, and can work for the betterment of each other, it matters not whether he, you know, praises this name of God or that or the absence of one. As long as he can, you know, effectively relate with other people and help, and, you know, we can all better our plot here in the world.
What does that mean, to better our plot in the world? Who defines what's better?
You do. That's the whole issue of Thoreau, is your idea of the world comes from, you look at yourself and you see, you imagine through an active imagination, you envision the world in which you will flourish, and you work to achieve that end. And that is a responsibility to yourself, to God. That is what you can call the actualization of self, or communion with God, whatever you want, but it's still, you know, same thing.
And what happens if I think that self-actualization is best achieved by having sex with as many good-looking women as I can, by making as much money as I can, by driving as nice a car as I can, and by having as many homes as I can?
Well, I would say if that's what it tells you, then you fulfill that. But
yeah.
But common experience tells us, or at least from my viewpoints, close to my viewpoints, what I've seen
your
is
viewpoint.
That doesn't make me happy. I mean,
big whoop, it makes a lot of others of us very happy.
Oh, and immediately, yes. But after long term, that's the whole thing about, like, you know, hedonism. People always try to condemn hedonism, but I see a really close affinity between hedonism and Epicureanism. But the thing is, if you take it in the temporal context, you're not going to go off and rape women because you like sex, because there's repercussions. You have to take responsibility for your action. Just because something is pleasurable
What do you mean you have to take responsibility for your action? What does that mean? Why? Why do you have to take responsibility? Why can't you just treat life, if everything's totally relative and if it's just a matter of you creating reality in your own head, why do you have to take responsibility for what you do? You can just, you're an accident.
No. All right.
You're not an accident?
Well, all right. First of all, I never said anything about being an accident, but I kind of like the idea of us being an accident. Kierkegaard says that, you know, God never consulted me before he threw me into this thing called existence. You know, it pretty much is kind of an accident. So I'm thrown into it, but I still am confronted with a life that I must deal with. Yeah. And it is my responsibility to try to make sense of it. And that's the whole idea of community.
So make sense of it. And does it make sense that if I want to go and have sex with as many people as I can and make as much money as I can and drive as many expensive cars as I can, you have a problem with that? If that's my reality that I choose to create as the purpose of my life, you have a problem with that?
But the thing is, I know where you're trying to lead with that, but that doesn't lead to
just
happiness.
answer me, man. Come on, speak to me. Don't give me this garbage about you know where I'm going.
Me one more time?
Just talk to me, man.
There's a difference between just whimsical notions of happiness and your own true will.
Oh, really? What's the difference? And where do you get off telling me that if I want to have sex with as many good-looking women as I can, and I want to drive as many expensive cars as I can, that I'm not being sincere to myself? Where do you get off making that kind of judgment call?
Because I've gone down that path, and because I thought the same damn thing, but that doesn't make you truly happy.
Well, how do you know what's going to make me truly happy?
I'm not, but I can say you can go ahead and try, but I know that's not going to do it.
Oh, you do? Well, you are one knowledgeable gentleman. My goodness.
Because I live with a whole bunch of people who think the same thing, and I keep saying the same thing.
So you've got a bunch of people agreeing with you. Bravo. Does that mean it's true?
No. Agreeing with what you're saying, that they still think that the road to happiness is going out there and f***ing a bunch of women and doing drugs and buying big fancy cars, and they keep ending up unhappy, pissed off about something else or other. So you can say that's what you really want in life, but no, that's not what you really want in life.
Oh, what do I really want in life?
I don't know, but just...
Well, then what do you mean you know that it's not what I really want then?
Because everybody is just going to say, well, pleasure makes me happy, so anything that gives... That's the simple argument. You're trying to take the simple argument. There is a pleasure beyond just the immediate, you know, oh, right now I'm going to this girl and I'm going to be happy forever because I had a pleasurable experience. Even though there are other emotions that may be involved, you might get hurt about something. But you're saying, no, sex makes me happy, so I can go all these women, and that's... No, that's...
According to your worldview, you have no basis to tell me that if I think gassing Jews is the right way for me to experience happiness and to help my culture, my country get better, you have no basis that I've heard yet of telling me, no, that's wrong, that's not right.
The basis I'm using is the whole fact of what I've been arguing is this collective deliberation is a history of things. We have been taught by history that those are wrong things. You keep using examples, gassing Jews. We know through history, we all saw the acts of Hitler. Everybody agrees that that is not a good thing.
You gotta be kidding me. You honestly think everybody agrees that racism and Aryan supremacy is wrong? You honestly believe that?
Okay, no.
Good. Thank you. Have a good afternoon, man.
I just wanted to get your perspective really on maybe the role of shame in the Christian church and if it's used in ways that are maybe counterproductive to what Jesus was actually saying. Sin being just this name for something that we constantly want to rid ourselves of because we want to live and not die, kind of thing. I just wanted to get your opinion on just the concept of sin and how it's used in the Christian church and how it sets someone like me away from the church. And I think it's kind of an issue for me, you know, especially when you hear those guys on the, you know, with the big megaphones telling people and shaming people, saying, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. What do you think about all of that?
If I could murder this woman, bathe my hands in her blood, and feel no guilt, I think that would be really sad, tragic, wrong. So I, for one, am very grateful that God has given us consciences, or just that we have consciences, and we've got out of it at this point, that we have consciences that inform us that murdering people and bathing our hands in their blood is really wrong. I would hate to live in a society where people didn't have a conscience.
Absolutely.
Get me out of that, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that, yeah, those things, guilt, shame, conscience, all of that has a place in life. But do you think that in some modern churches, and kind of the mainstream cultural Jesus-type churches, that it's blown out of proportion, that people maybe, like, I found that the church really isn't a place that people can take their biggest and darkest problems anymore. If there was someone that showed up to church and said something along the lines of, like that man, the pornography addict, who couldn't really come to his church and say, I struggle with porn, and I watch it all the time, and it's making me crazy, and I don't know how to stop. And that was something that just became this internal struggle because he was in so much shame about it and didn't really think that the church would understand, And I think that's just kind of sad to me.
Well, the reason I appreciate what you're saying is because I am a minister of a church, one of the pastors of the church in Connecticut. And one of the ways I define the church is Christ's hospital, where broken people like me come for healing. Eugene O'Neill wrote, "We're all born broken. Life is about healing. The grace of God is the glue." That's what I need, because I'm born broken. I have a problem with wrongdoing. I do not follow the golden rule perfectly. At times I do follow it, and other times I don't follow it. And I am convinced that it would be wise for me to try and follow it better. And if there is a God in heaven who wants to help me, it would be very wise for me to ask for his help. Now, what Jesus Christ revealed is that there is a God who wants to help me in my brokenness, to give me grace, his love, his power, his guidance, his strength, his wisdom, to grow and to change. So the church is Christ's hospital, where broken people like me come to Christ for healing. Now, as a follower of Christ, do I experience guilt still? Absolutely yes. And I'm glad I do, because I still mishandle people, am rude to people at times, and that's wrong of me. And I experience guilt, but what do I do with that guilt? I don't rationalize it away, and I don't allow it to just pound me into the ground. Oh, you're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser. Instead, I turn to Jesus Christ, and he promises to forgive me. And so I accept that promise, rejoice in that forgiveness, and then by his grace, with his help, seek to change and become more Christ-like. Obviously, that's going to be a lifelong process for me, because I've got plenty of bad habits that are deeply ingrained. See, I'm not like this guy. I am not a guy who just always follows the golden rule. I'm a guy who struggles with superiority feelings at times. I struggle, you know what I really struggle with? I really struggle with feeling really stung by certain people when they make certain comments to me. And the fact that I feel so deeply stung by their comments shows that there's way too much of my ego hanging around. And that far too much of my self-image is based on what other people think of me. And what Christ calls me to is to base my self-image and my worth on his love for me and the fact that he created me for a purpose, not whether people think I'm great or think I'm a loser. So there are so many examples of how I stray from Christ and stray from what is good. And what sin is it's very destructive. And I've watched that destructiveness take place in my own life, and I've watched it take place in the lives of my family, those who I love most. And so I hate sin. But I'm so grateful that God is gracious and forgives and is in the business of healing broken lives like mine.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that sometimes the role of the church is misinterpreted as this collective group that just keeps eyes on everybody else, which, I think it turns into this legalistic, who can be the best Christian game show type of thing.
Right.
And I definitely got caught up in that. When I was in the Christian church, I was very legalistic, and because I was, didn't do anything wrong ever. But I think that Christian churches sometimes just maybe don't get it, that this is a lifelong process, that there's so much emphasis on the conversion experience as being this end-all be-all, now I'm clean kind of thing, and that you'll never struggle again. Yeah. And I found that way of thinking just doesn't work. Yep. That it's even for me as a non-Christian, I would consider myself an agnostic, but I do have to constantly reach out to something bigger than myself, because I'm stuck. You can't physically move yourself from somewhere. Like, you know, there's just these behaviors that I keep doing, you know, like procrastination for one.
Yeah.
I can't stop for the life of me procrastinating.
Uh-huh.
And whatever you want to call that, sin, you know, being lazy, whatever, I had to reach out for that and say, I can't move myself from this position.
Right.
But I wasn't able to quite get there when I was in the Christian church because I was stuck. And, you know, I think of it in terms of awareness, acceptance, and action. You know, you're aware that something's wrong, maybe you accept it, but, you know, that can also be interpreted as you and God accepting it. But I try to jump from awareness to action and say, God, I'm such a bad person, let me change it. You know, and missing that middle part, you know, of grace, I guess, is what I would call it. But I feel like I'm not making a whole lot of sense, and I have to go to class. But
Well,
I
I think you made a lot of sense, so thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here.
You bet. Have a good afternoon. Competition can be a blast, but competition can fall apart fast. It's real simple. If I forget that I'm competing against a human being created in the image of God, if I begin to think that my real purpose in life is to beat another person, to prove to that person and to anybody else that I'm superior, then competition turns sour. God created all human beings with an innate intrinsic value. We all are created in the image, in the likeness of God. Not only that, but God loves every single human being. And when you and I enter the business world, the art world, the world of athletics and sports, as long as you and I remember that we are competing against a human being created in the image of God, that can be very healthy. But as soon as our view of human beings begins to deteriorate, fall apart, then tragedy strikes. Then all of a sudden, it becomes expedient to cut someone off at the knees. It becomes expedient to destroy someone's reputation. It becomes expedient to manipulate, to intimidate people in order to be the winner. Too frequently in America, the question is, who's number one? And it is that emphasis on being number one that can be so lethal, so poisonous. For a human being is not inferior because they're number 2 or 3 or 4. A human being has innate intrinsic value because they're created in the image of God. John Madden once said, either you're number 1 or you're nobody. That's false. You and I as human beings have an intrinsic innate value because we're created by God for a purpose, to love and worship God and to love and serve each other. Someone once asked Ray Kroc, the former president of the food chain McDonald's, what do you do when a competitor is drowning? And Ray Kroc responded, I stick a hose in his mouth and turn the water on. How sad. We're not out to annihilate each other. We're not out to decimate each other. We're not out to destroy each other. We're not out to degrade each other, to demean each other by treating each other as inferior losers. Instead, God created us to love and respect each other, to value each other, to treasure each other, to encourage each other, to build each other up. Is there a place for competition? Of course there is. But we must always remember, in the heat of competition, that we're dealing with another human being, a fellow human being, loved by God, created by God, with intrinsic innate value, just the same way that we have that value. And that will protect us from becoming slaves of competition. There's another challenge with competition, and that is, it's the heart of pride. Pride is, I'm better than everybody else. Pride is based on comparing myself to others, and that is destructive. For when I'm always comparing myself to others, it leads to jealousy, it leads to envy, it leads to cutting a person off and making myself number one. That's sad. It's sad to watch a human being so insecure that they have to beat other people to prove to themselves and to prove to others that they really have significance. When you and I find our significance, our worth in Jesus Christ, that breeds a security, a peacefulness, a wholeness in life that is tremendously healthy, tremendously life-giving instead of life-destroying. It's amazing how easy it is to twist and pervert competition into creaming someone, destroying someone, or into comparing myself to someone in order to feel significant and worthwhile. And Jesus Christ says that's sad. Both of those options are very sad. Christ says, come to me, trust in me, find your significance, your worth in me, and then I will free you to compete honestly, but never to compete in a way to cut someone off, to destroy a fellow human being created in the image of God. But instead, always remember that the priority is to treat a person as a precious human being, a significant, valuable human being created in the image of God. Jesus Christ considers you and me so worthwhile, so valuable, that He dragged a cross up a hill. He was nailed to that cross, and He bled and died on that cross. What's the price tag that God has on your head, on my head? It's the death of His only Son, Jesus Christ. And when you and I put our faith in Christ and accept His love and live in the ocean of His love, that helps us to live lives of security, where we can reach out and build bridges of friendship, of tolerance, of accepting another person, not having to beat another person to prove our value. Isn't it time for you to find your worth in Christ, your significance in Him? He waits for you to simply but profoundly trust in Him, commit your life to Him. He promises to forgive you. He promises to give you the gift of eternal life. He promises to begin to grow His peace in you as you surrender to Him. God bless you as you make that most important decision. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church. We meet every Sunday morning at 9:30 at Sachs Middle School in New Canaan, Connecticut. Take the Merritt Parkway to exit 37, go to the end of the ramp, take a left onto Route 124, go approximately 1 mile, and take a right into Sachs Middle School. I'd love to personally invite you to join us this Sunday, 9:30, Sachs Middle School in New Canaan, Connecticut. Thank you so much for joining us for these few minutes. Have a great day.
Give me an answer. Don't waste my time. Tell it to me straight. The truth is getting hard to find. I have objections to what I've learned. I have questions and concerns. Give me an answer. Don't waste my time. Tell it to me straight. The truth is getting hard to find. I have objections to what I've learned. I have questions and concerns. Give me an answer.